that was something. The next day he had a black eye, and he had a bruise on his chin. There were several kind of things like that happen. On opening day and closing day, of course, we had a lot of games here, games of chance, and we had some high rollers here that were beyond my means. And one of the guys who was playing said, I never played this game. And truthfully, he never did. And he started with $10. And he started playing and playing and playing and playing. And before you know it, he had something like $1,500. And I says, you never played this game? He says, no, I never played this game. I think you're lying. No, I never played this game. He ended up winning $2,700. And that $2,700 he won, he gave everybody who was working that night the money. And to this day, I don't believe that he never played the game. But that was Stan Gresham.
Oh, okay.
And Stan was a funny guy that way, but he said he never played, and I presume he never played.
Lucky. What was the game? How do you remember what
it was? It was a craps.
Oh, okay. He was playing.
And he was just betting on the side there.
Okay.
And before you know it, he had 100, and he said, okay, just say, okay, pay the 100. Now all of a sudden he had 200. He says, man, this is easy. And old Stan used to play gin, and he was always the last one. He always wanted to see what his partners did before he wanted to be the last one to save the game. And most of the times, he lost the game. Our pigeons at that time was a man called Hal Cornelius. Mm-hmm. And Hal Cornelius owned some kind of company, and I don't know what he did, but he did a lot of work in the aircraft industry. And everybody hated to be his partner, but they loved to be his opponent because he was always good for $10 or $20 at the end of the day. But back then, 10 or 20 bucks was a lot of dough. Back in the old clubhouse again, we had a man by the name of Jacobs. And I can't recall his first name, but he was the club champion. And what he would do, we had lights in the old clubhouse that lit up the putting green. And at 10 o'clock at night before the match, he would be putting. He would be putting. He would be putting. And on the first tee, the first thing he would say to whoever his opponent was, he says, I stayed up to midnight and I couldn't make those 2-foot putts. I can't make a putt. Well, at the end of the 12th hole, the match was over because he made every putt in the world and he won the championship. The best golfer that in the old era was Freddie Kitchen. Freddie was not only a NOGA champion, but he was a champion at Lakewood Country Club for many, many years. Fortunately, I was beat by him in the semifinals, and I lost to Andy Hornick in the finals for the club championship. However, I do have some good things. I was champion 4 times of the Class A division.
That's great.
Good.
And the last time I did that was when I was 76 years old. So that's pretty good, I think.
That's outstanding.
What was the lowest your handicap ever was out here?
Well, let me tell you a little bit about how I started to play golf. I happen to be the writer of the Space Agency Insurance Program in 1952. And after 5 years, the guys sort of took me as a friend of theirs, and they asked me to join their golf league. I've never played golf or had a golf club in my hand. I says, I don't have any clubs. He says, don't worry about it. Just go see Charlie Sullivan at the carpenter shop. Now, Charlie Sullivan used to be the pro at the old Dover Bay Country Club. And during the war, he went to work for NACA as a carpenter. So I went to see Charlie. He says, you're lucky, because I just have my brand new clubs. So he pulls out all these clubs. They were Wilson Pro clubs, and we put them in a bag. I took the boxes and the bag, and he says, do you need a putter? I says, I don't have a putter. He says, do you have any balls? I says, I'll buy some. He says, here's 3 of them. I remember him giving me some Wilson staff balls. And at 6:30 in the morning, or 5:30 in the morning, Bill Benser picked me up in his 1957 Ford. If you remember the Ford, it was red and cream. And we drove out. I had my tennis shoes on and the tassel cap, April the 14th. We drove out to Seneca, and who's on the tee first? Our foursome. So I take this driver, and I hit the ground once. I came back again, hit the ground again. I hit the ground again, and Benser says, take a 5-iron. So I took the club and put it back, and the guys are yelling back, come on, hit the ball, hit the ball. You know how they are. So I finally hit the ball off the tee, and to make the story short, I hit the ball 138 times. I never counted the whiffs because I didn't think they count. You got to hit the ball. That's what I thought. Anyway, I got home. I cleaned off the driver where I got it and cleaned off that 5-iron. That's the only club. Put everything in the boxes again, and put the plastic over the bag, and took them back to the carpenter shop. And Charlie looks at me, he says, you really are a dummy. Why'd you put them back in the box? I have to take them out of the box. And he was yelling at me doing the dumb thing like that. And I thought I was doing the smart thing. But anyway, he says, in a big insurance man like you, cheating at playing golf. I said, what do you mean cheating? He says, you got to count when you miss it too. I says, Charlie, when you make a golfer out of me, he says, it's going to take a lot of money. And I had a wallet, with the flap underneath there, and I had 3 $50 bills. And I gave it to him. And I think he nearly had a heart attack because he's never seen so much money. He says, I'll see you at the driving range at Brook Park Road at 7:30 tonight. And I was there Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from April 17th until the Monday of Labor Day. Never saw a golf course at all. And every night I used to chip into a bushel basket. I had 3 balls. I hit them. If I missed them, I'd pick them up and put. Anyway, the day after Labor Day in 1957, we went to Chagrin Valley Country Club, and I shot an 82. Wow. And I can tell you that's only because you practice. I practiced. And my lowest score here was 68, and I did that several times. And I was a zero handicap in 1960 to maybe 61, then 2, and then 3, and then 4, and then 5, and then 5 and 5 and 5 and 6 for a long time. So that's how I started to play golf. And that's how I got Hank Kruger interested in playing golf, because he lived behind me and he would watch me hitting golf balls. So he wanted to hit golf balls. I said, you got to get more than 3 golf balls, Hank. So we went, we went and we bought a shag bag full of used balls. And back then, Max Flies and all were Bellata balls, you know, and there were cut balls. We were pitching golf balls, and we would have a game like that. And that's the way he learned how to play, and then we started to play here.
For those of us that weren't members when the old clubhouse was here, can you close your eyes and walk us through that building? What was that like?
Well, it was a farmhouse.
Mm-hmm.
You walked into, we parked where, you know, when you go down the 10th hole now,
Right.
to the left was a parking lot. And then as you went down, back when I started here, we used to have a gully. We didn't have the creek covered. And you had to hit before that, and it was the toughest hole. And we used to start on that hole. We went 10 was 1, 17 was 2, 18 was 2, 17 was 3, 11. And if you got through those 4 holes, it was an easy golf course. But anyway, you walked into the clubhouse and you'd walk up a few steps, and there was the receptionist, and there was an office, and then there was the bar. And then there was the ballroom, and then the porch was an extension. If you went a little past the creek, there was a porch that had an awning over it. And I can tell you right now that there were many balls that were hit on that porch, because they would bounce up and go into the porch. And then you went downstairs to the locker room and the men's grill. And the men's grill was best described as 1/2 of our present men's grill, not the card room, but you take 1/2 of it. And there was no windows, you just got in there, and they could seat about 2, 4, 6, maybe 20 people. And when 20 people got in and smoked, you couldn't see anybody. You couldn't see your cards or anything. But smoking was a bad thing there. It was cozy. The men's grill was a cozy place to be when you had only 5 or 6 or 8 people in there. But when it got filled up, it was awful. But most of the people then went upstairs and...
Was there a members' dining room then upstairs too?
Yes, the men's dining room was up there. And the men's dining, men could eat in the grill there too.
Right.
And John would bring that down with his shoe shine fingers. But it was fun. We had many sessions on building this building, and we had 2 plans. One plan was was favored by the board of directors, and Gordy Vaughn, who was then the president, and Sid Corporal, who was his right-hand man, favored this building as it is built today. And there were about 40 or 50 of us who had a petition, because we had a lot of room, to make it a one-floor plan, having one wing for the men, one wing for the women, and the center with the ballroom and the that was beaten down, and they built this building, I think, for $650,000. We're under construction now with something that's going to cost us $450,000, and it's well, I won't make any more comments on it. But just goes to show you how planning is. Now, we've been adding on, and during Vic's tenure, we did this. We did the boardroom, and we enlarged the men's grill and the downstairs pub. So there was a lot of done during Vic Ermel's regime. And nice things, in fact. It made this thing more of a country club than it was before, because everything was cramped. I recall the old men's grill was divided by a moving partition wall, and there was enough for maybe 16 guys to eat there, and the ladies were on the other side. And I guess it came about that the men were losing their cool and using some foul language at many occasions, that the women complained so hard that we built the halfway house and the men's grill, so we were apart from there. And that's how this country club evolved, in enlarging themselves. And pitifully, we enlarged ourselves to the degree today that is very costly and dumbfounded, in my opinion.